Good enough, Ralph? All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City Club of Eugene's January 19th, 2024 program, Looking Back and Looking Forward, a conversation with the President of the University of Oregon, Karl Scholz. My name is Andrew Karl, and I am City Club's President. We're coming to you from our home at 5th Street Market in the heart of downtown Eugene, and it's my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our speaker and to all of you joining us in person, online, and over the radio. For three decades, the City Club of Eugene has remained dedicated to its founding mission to build community vision through open inquiry. In accordance with our mission and purpose, we hope to connect people throughout our community and across generations, identities, experiences, and perspectives. You are invited this week and every week to join us in this effort, to share your wisdom, to learn something new, and to take active steps to make a difference in this city and region we all love. We cannot do this work alone, so like every week, I want to thank our Platinum, Community, and Diamond sponsors. The Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, serving as a catalytic leader in creating a vibrant and diverse economy that drives economic opportunity and well-being. Kaiser Permanente, which exists to provide high-quality, affordable healthcare services and to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. More information at www.kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. Get more information at uoregon.edu. Peace Health has been proud to serve Eugene, Lane County, and beyond as your hometown healthcare partner for more than 80 years. The Peace Health mission is to keep you and your family healthy. Learn more at peacehealth.org. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. And the AARP of Oregon is a trusted and positive force for social change, using the experience and leadership of volunteer members to benefit all Oregonians as we age. More information at states.aarp.org/Oregon. And thank you to the City of Eugene and Lane County for their support as well. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a longtime listener, I invite you to support our work by becoming an individual member, a business or community sponsor, or to suggest an idea for an upcoming program. You can do all those things and more at cityclubofueugene.org. Your support and engagement make these community conversations possible. Karl Scholz formally took his position as the 19th president of the University of Oregon on July 1st of last year. 3 weeks later, the University of Colorado announced it was leaving the Pac-12 conference. The University of Oregon wasn't far behind, and that, my friends, was only the first month. In the ensuing 6 months, President Scholz has undertaken a nationwide search for a new provost, navigated the tumultuous aftermath of the October 7th terrorist attack in Israel, borne witness to the creation of the first union of undergraduate student workers at a public university, all while tending to a growing campus here in Eugene and building a new one in Northeast Portland. We're fortunate to have the president here at City Club to discuss his first few months and to lay out his vision for the university's future. Please join me in welcoming Karl Scholz.
Andrew, thank you so much for that great introduction. And it is awesome to be here at the City Club of Eugene. So thank you for inviting me here today, for that great introduction, and welcome and hello to all of you who are here, those who are watching the live stream, and those who tune in to listen on radio. As you won't be surprised to hear, this is my first visit to the City Club. It's great to be here. The University of Oregon and the city of Eugene, the region, have enjoyed a rich history and mutually beneficial relationship for nearly 150 years. I'm pleased to talk today about my aspirations for our future together, but I can't help but reflect on a quotation from the late great Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. If you want to build a great city, create a great university and wait 200 years. We are in the home stretch. So I'm honored to lead the University of Oregon. My wife, Melissa, is with me here today, and we've received a warm welcome during this first 6 months in Eugene from everybody who we've encountered. We feel incredibly fortunate to get the opportunity to be involved in this community, in this great university, this breathtaking surroundings we have. We love food and wine. We're at the southern tip of arguably the greatest Pinot Noir growing region in the world. We love arts and culture that thrives in Eugene, and we're also sports fans. So just pinch myself. I can't believe we have this opportunity. The typical winter weather in Eugene is a marked improvement over Wisconsin, where we spent our previous 35 years. I've been fond of saying you don't have to shovel rain, but I admit this last week has thrown a curveball. It was a doozy. The cold snap, ice, and power outages have been extremely disruptive and dangerous. I know we all welcome this thaw. I hope everyone here and listening has stayed safe and well. I've spent my first 6 months then listening and learning. I've attended many, I started to try to count them up, but let's just say many events and gatherings with students, faculty, staff on our campus. I've enjoyed meeting and speaking with neighbors, with community members, business and city leaders, lawmakers, U of O alumni, and fans across our community, state, and nation. And so this idea of being aligned across the university, at least the best one can be in a great public institution, will allow us to fly higher and faster in achieving our goals, leveraging this deep love and interest so many have for the University of Oregon. So, this effort at strategic priority setting is still a work in progress, but 4 consistent themes are emerging, and that's the substance of what I want to talk to you about today. The first thing that we're going to be focusing on, the first thing that we are committed to doing, is further removing barriers to graduation, enhancing the quality of the student experience and their overall success. So why do students fail to complete their degrees in a timely way? Well, there's a variety of different explanations, but I can tell you there is a crisis out there in child and adolescent behavioral health. And every university in the country is navigating these crises. And how do they try to address it? They'll hire more people to work in the counseling space. The innovative institutions will try to join into telehealth and try to provide services in a different modality. But again, there's a crisis. We have to do more. And I am far from an expert in this area, but I'll say that the solutions have to rely in part on, I suspect, greater volunteerism. So students are part of something bigger than themselves. For greater connection to arts and the humanities, as students can do the deep reflection on what it is that they are here to do, and how do they find joy, how do they find passion. I think there's also, we need to do more to get students off their screens into this beautiful environment so they're interacting with nature and all. So I think our solutions depend on these kinds of activities, but we need to be attentive to it. Financial exigencies can trip up students. Imagine how challenging it is to navigate a difficult curriculum when you're having to work a second or a third job. So we need to be even more attentive to the financial barriers that our students are facing. And then there's a norm in higher education that student advisor ratios should not be over 300 to 1. At places, at pockets at the University of Oregon, we have student-to-advisor ratios over 500, 600 to 1. And that's a particular challenge because students need timely, accurate, empathetic advising to navigate a difficult curriculum. So our advisors at the University of Oregon are fantastic. They're incredibly dedicated. They're incredibly skilled, but they need more support. And then I used to love to be in the classroom. I was an economics professor. But I particularly loved being in the classroom at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's a great schedule, right? Because it frees up lots of my time to work with my graduate students and engage with my research and do everything else that you're asked to do as a professor. But I don't think I was alone in enjoying that 11 to 1 Tuesday, Thursday teaching schedule. And so if too many people want to teach their courses at 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's not conducive for our students to make timely progress through the curriculum. And so to improve 4- and 6-year graduation rates, we need to think about when our curriculum is delivered, particularly those high-impact, high-leverage courses that students need to take in order to embark on the sequence in their chosen course of study. So thinking about removing impediments to graduation forces you to think about everything that affects the student experience. And I'm excited to get to work at that. Number 2, I want the University of Oregon to be a leader, truly the leader among the great public research universities in career preparation for our students. Now, a couple of you might say, gosh, we've got this economist president, and all he wants to do is commoditize this precious thing we're doing, the education we're providing. It's nothing of the sort. All right, think about what the University of Oregon is. The University of Oregon is a great liberal arts university surrounded by a set of outstanding professional schools. Now, when I talk about the liberal arts, I sometimes will make kind of a joke. I say, I only have 2 problems with the phrase liberal arts. One is liberal and the other is arts. And why do I say that? Because I talk about liberal, and some of you may flash to say, whoa, liberal versus conservative. Come on, President, let's take the politics out of the university, as if we could do that. But when I talk about liberal in this context, I'm talking about the classical definition of liberal, the knowledge essential for a free-thinking person. And who among you, and I've asked this question to countless, hundreds, thousands of alums, who among you thinks that the university you care so much about should not be devoted to the knowledge essential for a free-thinking person? I've never had a single hand go up. All right? And the arts, all right, the arts are indispensable for us as humans. So whether it's theater or poetry or music or painting, indispensable for us as humans, but that's not what the arts are referring to in the liberal arts. The liberal arts are referring to the classic quadrivium and the trivium, the 7 disciplines that the ancients thought that an educated person needs to have mastery of. Sometimes I can get these, sometimes I don't, but let's try it. Grammar and rhetoric, arithmetic and geometry, astronomy, logic, and music. Not a bad list for today, but that's what the university is about. But, and I bemoan this, there are precious few job ads that say, for example, historian preferred. All right, Melissa here was a history major, and what she learned as a history major, she writes beautifully. She's able to take broad swaths of information and create meaning out of it. She's able to communicate brilliantly, both orally and written. And she runs her own law firm, helping people around the country. History was the perfect preparation for Melissa Scholz. But our students need more help to understand about how the skills they're acquiring through their course of study will create value out of the gate in the workplace. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to be a leader in careers. But there's a second reason, and that is that the University of Oregon, like every great public research institution, fails to leverage our single greatest strength relative to the private elite peers that we compete with, and that is our scale. Because too often, I mean, our alumni association is great, they do great work, but there's still this characterization, not entirely fair, that when you graduate from the University of Oregon, we largely forget about you. We may invite you to a viewing party or something like that, but we'll largely forget about you for 20 years or more. And then, once you reach a certain level of socioeconomic success, I or one of my colleagues will invite you to coffee. So let me pick on Scott. So I say, Scott, let's go to have coffee. And Scott, I might catch him in a weak moment. He says, sure. The first question I'm going to ask him is, how was your University of Oregon experience? And if he says, it was great, I don't forget about you. I come and ask you for money, I ask you for all sorts of things. But meanwhile, there's this 20-year period where students are making that transition from college into the world of work. They remember what it's like, they remember all the mistakes they've made, and they would love to give back. And indeed, they're likely in the position of hiring the new interns at their organization or the new employees. We can build that out. And the first university that does that begins to change the world. Number 3, had I had the privilege of giving this talk 10 years ago or so, I would have talked about the imperative of creating a welcoming campus, a campus where people feel welcomed. And I had a profound learning moment a number of years ago when a friend of mine put his arm around my shoulder, a big man, and he said, Karl, if you invite me to your house, I appreciate being welcomed. But by welcoming me, you've made it clear it is your house. We're trying to do something different at the university. We're trying to create a campus of belonging. And so to push that metaphor further, if I belong in your house, I'm going to come in and I'm going to open up the refrigerator and decide what I want to eat. I'm going to go pick up the remote control and decide what we're going to watch. And that was, again, a profoundly important lesson because I believe I want us to create a campus where everybody somewhere on the campus feels this exists in part for me. I belong here. Because if we're able to achieve that sense of belonging, then we can try to attack a higher aspiration, and that is a campus of genuine flourishing. And flourishing, I mean, again, this is a work in progress, be clear. But this idea of flourishing encapsulates the holistic development and thriving of every individual, every student, every staff member, every faculty member of our diverse community. It needs to go beyond the academic achievement and encompasses belonging, well-being, personal growth, resilience, and a sense of purpose. And fourth, I seek to further build our excellence, leveraging our distinctive scholarship in all sorts of different areas, whether for a changing planet or public good, accelerating innovation and impact, and discovering ourselves and what it means to be human. So let me give a few examples of that. And I could do this for every school or college at the University of Oregon, but I'm just going to name a few in the interest of time. So our College of Education has created educational materials used in school districts across the state and the nation. The University of Oregon was recently awarded a $21 million grant to continue our College of Education's work building positive cultures and behaviors in K through 12 schools. The new Ballmer Institute on our Portland campus has an unbelievably audacious vision. I told you about this crisis in child and adolescent mental health. And part of the crisis, and again, economist, I tend to want to break everything down into supply and demand. But supply and demand can be useful in thinking about this crisis of child and adolescent mental health. Because the supply of professionals in that field effectively requires a master's or PhD degree. And there simply are not enough people working in the field. Entry is restricted. And so what happens when entry is restricted? We wait until things become a crisis before we intervene. And the old adage, an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of cure, is very, very true in this context. So what is the Ballmer Institute trying to do? They're trying to create a whole new employee category, children behavioral health specialists, that can be achieved with a 4-year degree. Intensive training on interventions that have been demonstrated to work. And as they create these children's behavioral health specialists, they can be embedded in the schools or pediatricians' offices, doing things that can prevent the crises that are swamping our system now. It's an audacious vision, and as they're successful, it's another example of the University of Oregon changing the world. The University of Oregon is as good as anywhere in the world in hazards. We are the place for volcanoes, earthquakes, and wildfires. I've been talking to folks like, let's get biblical. Let's start talking about locusts and plagues as well. And I've gotten nowhere with that. So if you think the president has some authority, disabuse that idea. But on earthquakes, we just received a $15 million grant from the National Science Foundation to study the Cascadia subduction zone. If you want to be scared out of your wits, go visit with those people. I couldn't sleep for a week after it. But it's important work, and it's going to mitigate some of the harmful effects of earthquakes in the Pacific Northwest. Our folks working with the state of Oregon and the federal government have wildfire cameras across the state to do early intervention, observation and intervention of wildfires that have become such a blight on the landscape. The Oregon Hazards Lab is doing phenomenal stuff. The Knight Campus for accelerating scientific impact. You see the buildings going up. The work they are doing there is remarkable. The biomedical engineering that's happening, the foundational science that is addressing arthritis or neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease is beginning to change the world. In addition, they are doing extraordinary training of the students and have wet labs where they're partnering with industry across the region that are quickly filling up. Again, it's another example of the University of Oregon changing the world. We're also improving the quality of richness of our lives here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. So for example, the Oregon Bach Festival is world-renowned for its performances in music education, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. We're thrilled to partner with cities of Eugene and Springfield, with Travel Oregon, Travel Lane County, partnered with them in 2022 to bring the World Athletics Championship to American soil. It says American soil. It's the first time ever in North America. And this summer, the University of Oregon will once again hold the track and field Olympic trials at Hayward Field, bringing world-class athletes and their fans to Eugene. The venue is the best in the world, and it continues to draw the eyes of the world to our community. And all of these distinctive strengths greatly benefit our students, community, state, and society. And I, as a newish president, will do everything I can to support and enhance the University of Oregon's excellence and impact, telling our story to the world, which in turn will support the success of our students, staff, faculty, and increase the prosperity of our community and region. So the university's future is important to Eugene and the region, just as Eugene's success is vital to the university. Leaders from the city of Eugene and the UO meet regularly to share information and collaborate on the issues we care about. We also value our partnerships with the state of Oregon and are grateful to legislators for funding the Public University Support Fund. But if they wish to have this conversation, I'd be delighted to explain how the return on that investment is enormous and therefore potentially deserving of even greater investment. Many U of O students come from Eugene and the surrounding areas. I was very interested to see almost about 3,000 of our students come from Lane County alone. This year, we have the largest class of Oregonians in our first-year class in history. We are investing heavily in the state of Oregon. We've also welcomed our most diverse incoming class of students, and these students are among the most academically gifted we have ever seen. We also attract people to Eugene and enhance its skilled workforce. So we have thousands of students who come from out of state. They fall in love, as Melissa and I have, with the area and stay in the state of Oregon. We know that that same thing applies to many of our faculty and staff who choose to study and work at the University of Oregon because Eugene is such a lovely place to live. In 2021, the UO was the second largest employer in Lane County. I chafed at that. I said, we've got to be the largest. Peace Health is just a bit larger. And we will continue to compete with Peace Health about being the largest or the second largest employer in Lane County. We contribute roughly $425 million in employee wages to the local economy every year. The UO community spends more than $800 million with local businesses. And over the last 5 years, there's been more than $1 billion of capital construction projects on campus, and I do not see that pace slowing down. And so that translates to prevailing wage jobs that benefit the local community. We are an engine of economic prosperity. And our fates are intertwined. UO's success is the community's success and vice versa. So let me close the way that I started. I believe I am the luckiest person in the room. Getting to be the president of the University of Oregon is an absolute dream come true. The university creates deep connections, strong ties, and I can say sometimes creates intense feelings that come with strong opinions, and people are very welcome to share those feelings. I welcome that. I'm thrilled to have such an invested community. The University of Oregon is truly a remarkable place. I believe this to the tip of my toes, to the top of my head. The upside of our already outstanding university is breathtaking. We will not achieve this upside without all of us, everyone who cares about the university and the region, pulling together to do great things. So I cannot wait to see what lies ahead. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward to answering questions, and of course, go Ducks.
We will begin our question and answer with the University of Oregon President Karl Scholz in just a moment, but first I'd like to thank the business and in-kind sponsors whose support helps to make City Club possible. Thank you to our gold sponsors, the Network Charter School, Hirschner Hunter LLC, and Evans, Elder, Brown, and Subert. Thank you also to our in-kind sponsors, KRVM 91.9 Radio, Alpha IT, Dotson's Photography, and Kid Sports. Also, a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station, KLCC FM 89.7, for airing City Club programs Monday nights at 7 p.m. For those of you listening at home right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning into City Club on KLCC, and we love that you are here. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived on KLCC, as well as on our YouTube channel and as podcasts. We'll be right back with questions from our audience.
This guy is good. You're talking about me. I have a face for radio. Oh, I'm miniature. All right. I tell you how much I hate to be stuck behind a podium. I'm a pacer. They told me, no, we're filming. I'm out of the kidding.
Oh, wonderful. You can stay here if you want to. You can also roam around. But you know,
All right. I've been told after the crack about having a face for radio that the video didn't work. We're all saying. Yeah. It's good, and that means I get to pace in answering questions.
are you? Good. No, Before we get going, there are a few more Yum Bowls available if anybody is just hankering for lunch. I know we sold out earlier, but Mary Layton came to the rescue with more, so please avail yourself if of interest.
There you go.
How much time do we got now? 26 minutes. See how many we can get in. We got one that came in from your friend Sam Schwartz. I know you know Sam. If there's not enough in line, it's not hard. Yeah. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the City Club of Eugene and our conversation with University of Oregon President Karl Scholz. Our first question comes from someone who knows a little bit about the University of Oregon presidency, Scott Coltrane. Scott.
Thank you. I was been asked to let us know that the Eugene Weekly will be publishing again online this week, so good news there. So Karl, I want to reflect a little bit. I loved your vision statement. When I was dean and provost and interim president, I would sometimes travel to national meetings, and one of the things that really impressed me, formerly known as the Big Ten Committee on Institutional Collaboration, and I was very impressed. They did a lot for each other academically. And so, as Andrew alluded, when UO and several other schools decided to leave the Pac-12, I wondered what could be the benefit on the academic side. Most of the media coverage is about media revenues, about recruiting athletes, about filling stadiums, getting donors, but what might it do for the University of Oregon in their research enterprise and their teaching enterprise?
That's a great question, Scott, and so thank you so much for it. And it's great to see Scott here. He's a legend across campus. He's also reminded me, when I was president, the Ducks played for a national championship. Get it going, Karl. So, but yeah, the move to the Big Ten has gotten a lot of interest. As Andrew mentioned, it happened on day 35 of my presidency. So the next day, I came into the leadership team and said, all right, this happened on day 35. On day 70, we've got to top this. And the expressions of horror on people's face. It's a joke. It's a joke. You got to learn my sense of humor. Or my air quotes sense of humor. But Scott's question is an important one, because the move of the University of Oregon to the Big Ten will indeed strengthen our academic programs, and that is one of the reasons that we've done that. Scott mentioned there was a collaboration across the Big Ten universities called the Council of Institutional Cooperation, the CIC. That's now become something called the Big Ten Academic Alliance. And in my previous post as provost at UW-Madison, I was the kind of the director or the chairperson of the Big Ten Academic Alliance for over 2 years. And the Big Ten Academic Alliance does some things that no other athletic conference has managed to do. For example, they have the Big Collection, which is a collaboration of the libraries across the Big Ten. I don't have to tell anyone here how prohibitively expensive it is for an academic library to try to have holdings in every dimension of human inquiry. You can't do it. And so what the big collection does is recognize the strengths at the respective institutions. So the University of Michigan can have a fantastic Far East collection. The Ohio State University can have a Southeast Asia collection and all. The University of Oregon has a tremendously distinctive collection in the Pacific Northwest. And you pool resources, and we can draw then on library items from every Big Ten university in the country, which gives us access to about 25% of all printed knowledge in humanity. And so it's a huge resource. Similarly, course share. It is, again, prohibitively expensive for every university to have full course sequences in every language spoken, used around the world. In some of these, particularly for these less commonly taught languages, so-called lictals or antils, almost never taught languages. These can be languages that are spoken by tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of people around the world. Think Urdu or Swahili. Yet it's very expensive because student demand isn't great for these languages. So what CourseShare does is split the teaching so that UCLA can teach semester 1, Oregon can teach semester 2, Michigan State can teach semester 3, making our resources go further in these areas that are critical for scholarship, critical for global relations, but again, are prohibitively expensive. The academic leadership program of the Big Ten Academic Alliance is second to none in the country. So if people have taken leave of their senses and decide they want to be deans or provosts or chancellors or associate deans or department chairs, the Big Ten Academic Leadership Program is the preeminent training program that exists. And lastly, every single one of my vice presidents has a peer group in the Big Ten that meets regularly and can share best practices. So during the pandemic, as provost, I chaired a meeting twice a week, learning kind of what are you experiencing in other campuses, what's working well, what's working poorly, what can we do better. And almost every single position at the University of Oregon will have a ready-made peer group that is, peers of the preeminent athletic academic conference in the country. So for those reasons, this is a move that will dramatically strengthen the academic enterprise as well as the athletic program. So if someone wants to ask me about that, I'd be happy to talk about it as well.
Thank you. Next question.
I'm David Eigel, class of 1975. I was born and raised in a community that's was a small fraction of the size of Eugene, Oregon. It was called Eugene, Oregon. A lot of people have come here over the years, and that's great, except that one of the problems we've had is there's been a lot of false history being presented on a lot of different topics. And a particular interest to me that got me interested and then expanded from that was Professor Dunn. I've more than documented the story about Professor Dunn, whose building was denamed in 2016, is a complete fraud. I mean, he wasn't the head of a Klan. He wasn't active with them. He was the David Frohnmeyer of this community before David Frohnmeyer, the brilliant young man who went off to Harvard, gave a lifetime of love and service, and he's one of the most racially progressive families, a family who are among the most heroic abolitionists in the history of the United States. So my hope is this, I've documented all this, my hope is that with your arrival here, something will be done at the university to acknowledge the mistake and restore the man's reputation. Whether that involves a building naming or not is beside the point. So, do I have hope?
Interesting question. I don't know the deep backstory on this. I know the issue was a very eminent panel of historians was tasked by my predecessor, President Mike Schill, to look into this history. I've read President Schill's public statement, the agony that he admittedly went through in navigating this issue. And my perception, it was very thoroughly investigated then, and my instinct will not relitigate or reinvestigate this, but I and my colleagues look forward to reading the material that you've prepared, and and that's where we'll be.
Well, if you do, that'll take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Kitty Piercy, City Club member. So I want to say, first of all, how much I appreciate your care and concern for the whole student. I think it's super, super important in this day and age, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your ambitions and enjoyment of education and liberal arts. So thank you for all of those things. I say all this because I'm going to give you a question that's kind of like a gotcha question.
I knew there would be a but there. Kitty, thank you.
And so I wanted to preface it by saying I have no desire to get you. I just want to say that a few weeks ago we were discussing the prison system here in this room, and we had an assistant DA whose statement was it was the liberal counseling programs from the universities that were the problem behind our drug problem and our kids' struggles. And I wanted to give you a moment in time, not to pick a liberal or conservative point of view, but to say to the nation and to anybody who's listening how you feel about the role that higher education has and why it's important that we respect the role that you have in trying to come to terms with the future of our kids and their safety and well-being.
Right. Well, Kitty, thank you for your question, and that is not a gotcha at all. We have as I said, we have a child and adolescent behavioral health crisis in society. I'll tell you, we have a prison and prison recidivism challenge, crisis in society. And I'd be dumbfounded for anyone who asserts that these problems are the fault of higher education, right? It wildly overestimates our ability, but I can tell you that people across the university are committed to addressing these challenges. Just a few months ago, my colleague Matt Roberts and others convened the Dane County, I'm going to mess up the specific name, but Task Force on Homelessness with leaders across the community, across the university, to further interrogate what can we do as a university, what can we do as individuals to address these problems of crime, drugs, homelessness, or the unhoused, and make our community stronger. It's vitally important. And many of my colleagues across the university are committed to doing precisely that. I told you about the audacious, remarkable work happening at the Ballmer Institute, but countless numbers of my colleagues in 3PM, public planning, or public policy and planning and management, or the law school, or the College of Education, are committed to these issues and have devoted their lives to them. And so I'll assert the university, and particularly the University of Oregon, is part of the solution to all of these problems. We have people who are doing cutting edge work on how to solve the challenges, and we collectively need to work together to address them.
Thank you. My name is Alex. I'm a University of Oregon student, and my question for you today, that's also kind of a gotcha question, is about how our universities have become prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
I know, and I've heard from many of my students, that over the last 3 years, the cost of attending the University of Oregon has skyrocketed. For residents, it's increased about 11%. And that's not just in tuition, but in things like housing and textbooks and food. So my question for you is, with all of the funding challenges we face with the state and rising tuition, how can we pay and fund our university in a way that will prevent it from continuing to be prohibitively expensive for our students going forward?
Yeah,
thank you.
That's a great question. And Alex is one of our fantastic student leaders at ASUO. And so we have a good friendship, and Alex is asking an incredibly important question, but he is an awesome student leader. So if you have a chance after this, corner Alex, ask him what's going on. He'll give you the straight scoop. Affordability of college is front and center for every president, everyone's concern. On the good side, as Alex knows, we now have guaranteed tuition. That is, once you come to the University of Oregon, we have promised not to raise your tuition for the next 5 years, and that gives families a good visibility about the costs that they're going to incur when they come to the University of Oregon. Having said that, one of the things I do as an incoming president is look at, okay, what's our tuition relative to our peers, both in-state and out-of-state tuition, because there are not a lot of levers that one, as a president, you can pull to find resources in order to support these ambitions that I talked about. And particularly at the University of Oregon, there's 3 kind of spots. There's tuition, there's the state, and there's sort of federal research and philanthropy. So four levers. I looked at tuition, and I'll admit I had kind of a Scooby-Doo moment. Sort of, uh-oh. And the reason is we're kind of right at the top for out-of-state and in-state students. So just as Alex said, the University of Oregon does not get super high marks on this, and it means that that's not a lever I can pull to generate more resources. And it leads to these things like the 5-year tuition guarantee. Well, number 2, state support. I'm sitting in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a bright purple state. Melissa and I got there in 1988. At the time, the state provided about 32% of the University of Wisconsin-Madison's budget. That's fallen to between 13 and 14%. So we felt under siege, like the state doesn't, it's happening everywhere. It wasn't just Wisconsin. We thought, oh my gosh, we're really, again, under siege. And then the stars align and we get this opportunity. And I say, I'm going to this politically blue state. And trust me, we've been to Pendleton. We know Eastern Oregon is not so politically blue, not blue, but politics, it's a blue state. I said, they are going to support public higher education. Another Scooby-Doo moment. I told you Wisconsin's between 13 and 14%. The University of Oregon between 6 and 7%. All right, that contributes to the affordability challenges that Alex is talking about. Federal research revenue. We do pretty well, but the other flip side of this, we're a great liberal arts university surrounded by professional schools. We have only a nascent engineering program. We don't have a medical school. So UW-Madison had a run rate of about $1.3 billion in federal research expenditure. University of Oregon's pushing $200 million. So that's not a great source. We have unbelievably committed philanthropists. We do really, really well in that area. But we are not a resource-rich institution, and that then contributes to the challenges that Alex is talking about. So what do? We work really hard to raise money for philanthropy. We have the Oregon Opportunity Grants, which is critical investment in the state. We have the Home Flight Program, a critical investment to support our Native American students, and we will continue to try to do the same sort of thing. And as you know, we're going through the tuition setting process. You all are part of it. We're going to try to keep those increases low. At the same time, we continue to have pressures. Our greatest expense is people, and we know whether the GTFF for the United Academics or the other, those negotiations are happening this year, and that's the constraints that we operate under. And that's part of what makes this job so fun. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. My name is Susan Cox, and my question is, I have the pleasure of serving as the Honorary Consul for Korea, and I'm very interested to know how you can encourage more international students. I know, especially during the pandemic, that really bottomed out, but I think that's a wonderful opportunity. For
Fantastic question, and it did fall precipitously in the pandemic, but unlike some of our peers, it has not snapped back the way that we would like to see. And this is something that's really, really important to me. It's really important for the community. It's important for the university to have that global perspective that our international students offer. And so, number one on the agenda is to create great experiences for the students who do choose to study here, because there's no better ambassadors, if you will, than a student who's been here and had a great experience. The second is working with our Division of Global Engagement to tell the story. And so Korea is a country I have a particular soft spot for. I've spent over a month living and visiting in Korea. The University of Wisconsin-Madison at one point, again, economist by training, had educated a very significant fraction of the professional economists in the country of Korea. So it's the one place in the world where I was a bit of a celebrity because of all the students we worked with. It's a very, very soft spot in my heart. But I think it's making those connections, encouraging students to come here, and when they do come here, having fabulous experiences.
My name is David Conover. I was previously the Vice President for Research at the University of Oregon. So I know that researchers are really concerned about accuracy. So my question is the Big Ten ever going to change its name to something that's actually accurate?
That was a great turn, because I was almost certain that I had said something incorrect, and David was going to correct me in public, and it would be a humiliating moment, because David is absolutely right. Again, another legend at the University of Oregon. So David, thank you so much for the question. Let me just talk a little bit about the change of conferences, because it's been a very controversial topic, yeah, I'd like to say just a little bit more about it. First of all, I think the great state of Oregon needs two thriving R1 institutions. So I very, very much want to see Oregon State University be successful. And I will do everything I can as president of the University of Oregon to help facilitate that, except when our respective teams play in competition. And I also understand the changing conference alignment is a great challenge for Oregon State University, and I have a great deal of empathy for that. From the University of Oregon's perspective, I want to focus very quickly or briefly on three other things, in addition to what Scott Coltrane asked about, the academic advantages. First of all, we can all want to cover our heads and say, I do not want the world to change. But the world was changing. As Andrew said, University of Colorado, even before a TV deal was on the table, had moved conferences. The idea that the Pac-12 would emerge in the same form that it had before is just not accurate. There's change happening, and we had an opportunity to go to the best academic athletic conference in the country. And so that's one. That stability was really important. Second, for people to see Duck Sports under the deal that was on the table would have required buying a supplemental package on Apple TV. And there are lots and lots of people who would have said, heck no, I'm not going to do that. And so casual Duck fans, prospective students and their family wouldn't have had an opportunity to see Oregon athletics. And that visibility is very, very important to us in this highly competitive landscape. And third, something that we all should be very, very proud of. Our athletic program is one of about 25 in the country that is entirely self-sustaining, meaning I, as president, don't have to ask the taxpayers from the state of Oregon to subsidize athletics. I don't have to ask the families of our students to subsidize athletics. And I'm an economist. I believe in markets, but I can tell you, coaches are really well compensated. I don't want to ask taxpayers in the state of Oregon to pay our coaches' salaries. And that independence, if you will, that financial self-sustaining of the athletic department would not be possible without the revenues available from the Big Ten into the future. And so for those three reasons, this was the right thing to do for the long-run future of the University of Oregon. Now, we will not call it the Big 18. We don't know what's lying ahead. And so the Big Ten has been very clever in using a logo of B1G. And that's how they'll continue to brand themselves.
Joel Cornyn, before I ask my question, I wanted to tell a little story to convince you that President Scholz is the ultimate optimist. We were talking about trying to get him here on January 5th, 2 weeks ago. And he said, no, I can't. There's a bowl game. And the only bowl game on that weekend was the national championship. So that was back in November, and we admire your optimism. The question I have is, you spoke about the capital improvements. Could you be more specific as to what you intend to do in terms of what buildings you want to put up?
Joel, very clever question, and you know I cannot answer that with any specificity. Right now, I think, Matt, it's public to practice facility. All right, so one thing that is relatively recent, I think, and we have set an agreement with the City of Eugene to do an indoor practice facility for the football team. And so that's one of what's happening in the future. The other thing, I think I can talk in a general way, I think the East Campus plan is out of compliance. I keep looking at Matt when I say this, both with an executive order from Governor Brown and with the appropriate land use. The executive order, I think, had for increased density on major thoroughfares, and so we don't really meet that with Franklin Avenue. And then there's other land use issues where we ought to have greater density on the east part of the campus. And so we'll be engaged in a process to have some master planning, working with the community to re-envision that. There's the Romania site that the university owns that I think we're talking about development. But then there'll also be a need to continue. I mean, many of our buildings are older, and so we want to improve those buildings. The Ballmer Institute up on the Portland campus is going to need more space to meet their audacious vision. And so things like that. But think East Campus, think Romania, think athletic, practice facility, think the Ballmer campus on Portland. Those are the sort of examples that I can talk about. Night campus, exactly. We're almost certainly not done with the night campus, but we want to complete phase 2. And then there is a dream about a third phase. Thank you, Matt.
You mentioned the pride in the university as a liberal arts institution, and historically we've thought of liberal arts institutions as places of open inquiry, like City Club, where you try to get to an answer about what the truth is, even when it's uncomfortable. And yet, even before October 7th, there were concerns about free speech on campus, whether it was under attack by both sides of the political spectrum. And I'm curious how you approach challenging issues like that in the environment in which we find ourselves.
Great question, Andrew. And it's bedeviling campuses across the country, as everybody is aware. We have to be a place of open inquiry and debate. We have to be able to deal with uncomfortable topics. We have to be a counterexample to this caricature of, wokeness and indoctrination that's happening on our campus. Because anyone who spends time on campus knows it's not that way. Partly students like Alex and his friends, they are not malleable lumps of clay. They come in, they come in with their ideas. They are critical thinkers. They hear things that seems like BS. We'll call you on it. And then the nature of our faculty and staff colleagues are really committed to this idea of open inquiry. I love the story of one of my colleagues at my former institution. Was a political science professor, and at every final exam, he would ask the students, "What political party do I affiliate with?" And there was a coin flip. They had no idea. And so many of our faculty and instructional colleagues operate like that. And so our challenge, though, is I read an interesting essay about the Middle East conflict and making the comparison to the dislocation occurring on campuses for Vietnam. And the observation there was that the Vietnam was truly a crisis, a time of incredible stress for campuses. But the activism on campus tended to be directed at the administration. So there was a great deal of, I don't want to say uniformity, but there was a great deal we are in the vanguard, you are the problem. For the Middle East, it's very different. It's people deeply affected by the Hamas attack in Israel, and then people deeply, or maybe the same people, deeply affected by the extraordinary loss of life happening in Gaza. And it's not like, administration. There's a greater wish on both sides to say, administration, support us. And that's a very, 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 very challenging situation. And we need to navigate that with grace, empathy, compassion, trying to model open dialogue as best we can. But it's very challenging.
Thank you. Our last question is a town gown question, and it gets back to something you raised in your remarks about the place of the university within this community. Recently, we had at City Club a conversation about the closure of the Peace Health Hospital near campus and what we were going to do about it. And many people have raised, well, maybe the university can do something about it. And of course, that's just one example. People often ask, well, maybe the university can do something about it. And of course, you have limited resources as you've described. So how does the university decide how to plug into broader community challenges that we face, and how do you see yourselves as a partner to the community going forward?
Yeah. A great question. Our colleagues in government and community relations are the front door of our interaction with community. I highlighted Matt Roberts, Jenna, someone who you might know, does so much. And so for us to fulfill our potential, we have to be a vital partner with the community, and we take that very, very seriously. The short answer on Peace Health, like, oh, will the university take care? No, we can't, and for the reasons that you're saying, Andrew, because of the of resource constraints, the mission that we have to serve our students. At the same time, we want to be great partners, and so we're working very, very hard to work with students and the University Health Service to make sure that our students can be safe, they have immediate access to health care that they need. We have a 24-hour nurse online, and so the closing of Peace Health affects our community just as it does the broader Eugene community, and we're having to adapt. We don't want to put additional pressure on the Eugene community, so we can have, taxi or services to transport students to the Springfield Hospital as needed, to not put additional pressures on. The first exhortation is take care of ourselves so we don't become a burden on others. And then second is to think creatively, how can we address and how can we be part of the solutions to the challenges faced in the community, because only then can we mutually prosper, and we will take that very seriously.
Please join me in thanking President Scholz. This has been our January 19th conversation at the City Club of Eugene. Next Friday, January 26th, we'll be right back here at 5th Street for a preview of the 2024 state legislative session with Senator Floyd Przansky and Representative Charlie Conrad. A few additional notes this week. Special thanks to 2 new City Club interns from Karl's University of Oregon, Sierra Dalton and Josh Pugh. We're so grateful to have them with us, and they will make great contributions to the club, so thank you to both of them. Thank you as well to Melee Construction, Pivot Architecture, and Peace Health at Riverbend, who are hosting our Industry for Educators participants next week. They'll be learning about careers in housing, construction, and healthcare, so thank you to all of those partners. And last but not least, we have a special birthday to celebrate this week at City Club. Longtime City Club member Marge Ramey turning 99 years old on Monday. Can we hear it from Marge? I don't believe the 99, Marge, but we will be celebrating and singing with you on Monday night. So congratulations and thank you for being part of City Club.
My great pleasure has been with the University of Oregon and with the City Club, because I wanted to see what the rest of the world was like outside the university.
There we go.
Wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marge. Thanks so much, everybody.